In the shadows of the Soviet Union, a hidden academy existed, training women to become deadly seductresses. Jason Matthews's Red Sparrow exposes the chilling truth of State School No. 4, where young women were groomed to use their allure as a weapon. These femme fatales, armed with seduction and espionage, were tasked with ensnaring powerful foreigners, capturing compromising evidence, and extracting vital secrets. As the Soviet era waned, the veil of secrecy surrounding these institutions began to lift, revealing a world of intrigue and danger. Most students were Russian soldiers. It may be surprising to learn that the majority of women recruited for sexpionage came from a military background. They were typically soldiers in the Russian army who went into the intelligence corps. Setting honey traps to blackmail powerful foreigners, including ambassadors and diplomats, into giving up state secrets was considered to be an act of patriotism very similar to military service. However, some of the individuals who trained for this line of work were young college students who were seen to possess valuable assets such as beauty, understanding of foreign cultures, and an impressive intellect. Perceived loyalty on the part of these future sparrows was also an essential qualification. Not only were the potential cadets investigated in depth, but the loyalty of their families, sometimes going back 2 generations, was also carefully scrutinized. The Romeo Spies. When we hear about spies using sex to obtain classified information, and when this is depicted in pop culture, they are usually female agents, but there have also been plenty of male spies involved in these operations over the years. Sometimes referred to as Romeos or Ravens, these men had a separate school in Soviet-controlled East Germany where they were trained in the art of sexpionage. However, their education focused more on romance than eroticism, as they learned techniques for manipulating the emotions of their target. After their training, these men were typically sent to West Germany, where they would seduce Western women whose jobs gave them access to state secrets and, in many cases, carried on surprisingly long relationships, sometimes lasting over a decade. Even more shocking is how often these targets would willingly betray their country in order to cooperate with their Romeo after discovering the man's true identity. Only the top 1% of applicants to the East German Academy went on to become Romeo Spies. The criteria for selecting these male agents were somewhat different than it was for their female counterparts at the Sparrow School. Though some of these men were strikingly good-looking, a handsome appearance was not actually one of the requirements. Another difference was that sexual skill was judged to be less important than character traits. The women targeted by these Romeos generally seemed more interested in a real relationship with a man they could envision spending their life with rather than a fling with a good-looking stud. So it makes sense that most Romeos possessed attributes like confidence and reliability. According to the Daily Mail, they were usually well-educated and attentive, with a sense of humor and impeccable manners. Fighting competitions. Anyone who is a fan of spy movies has seen that espionage can be a dangerous business. While many of these stories are fictional, there is a lot of real-life evidence to show that spying is not exactly the safest line of work. At State School No. 4, much emphasis was placed on physical training, including martial arts and firearms lessons. The women known as sparrows, swallows, or honeypots were also expected to participate in hand-to-hand fighting competitions. This was all in addition to the work they did to become as physically fit as possible. Incentives. The desire to be of service to one's country has always been a motivation for people who choose to go into any type of government spy work, especially for those recruited from the military, which was where so many of the young women came from who enrolled in State School No. 4. However, there were some additional incentives offered to the potential sparrows, or swallows, as they were referred to by the KGB. Benefits could include material possessions or, in some cases, a more appealing lifestyle. Playwright and screenwriter Yuri Krotkov, who defected to the West in 1963, later revealed to the press that the KGB assigned him the task of recruiting aspiring actresses for honey trapping. He explained to American journalist John Barron that he would lure them into joining the program with the enticements of better roles, money, clothes, a measure of liberty and gaiety absent from normal Soviet life. Unusual graduation present. Once they completed their training at State School Number 4 and were about to be sent out to 5-star hotels on honey trap-setting missions, the female recruits were given an unusual graduation gift. Actually, the sexy lingerie they received was more like a uniform, considering they wore it for work to help them look as desirable as possible when they were seducing targets. In addition to this kind of intimate apparel, there was something else the spies occasionally wore that helped them to get confidential information. Fake nipples equipped with hidden microphones attached to batteries charged by body heat, according to Central European University. Depictions of alluring secret agents dressed only in provocative undergarments or a risque nightie have been popular for a long time. After sleeper agent Anna Chapman's cover was blown and she was deported back to Russia, the beautiful redhead got a lot of attention when she posed in some very revealing lingerie for the Russian version of Maxim in 2010, turning fantasy into reality for a lot of people who could only imagine scantily clad female spies. Sometimes, entertainers were recruited. While cadets for these espionage academies usually either came from the military or were carefully selected college students, in some cases they were recruited from the entertainment field. Of course, talented actresses would be particularly valuable to operations like this, which rely so heavily on pretense. Acting ability is essential for these spies. They must convince targets that they are genuinely attracted to them and then proceed to manipulate them. Acting skills were even more useful when scenes would be staged to frighten or coerce someone into providing information, such as when French ambassador Maurice Dejean was set up to think he had been caught in the act by a jealous husband during a tryst with actress Larissa Kronberg. This led Dejean to divulge secrets in exchange for Soviet help in making the potential scandal go away. While actresses were an obvious choice for this work, other performers were recruited as well, such as singers and dancers. The Soviet Union was not alone in mining these glamorous professions for sexpionage. The most famous female spy of all time was exotic dancer Mata Hari, best known today for being a femme fatale, working as a secret agent for Germany during World War I. It wasn't just female entertainers that the KGB selected to be sexpionage operatives. They were known to audition male opera singers for this type of spycraft as well. Still, it was celebrated pianist Konstantin Lapshin who delivered some of the most impressive results in his capacity as a raven, where they were sent. In addition to being sent out to wait for targets in the lobbies and bars of Moscow's 5-star hotels that were designated for foreigners, the graduates from the Sparrow School were dispatched to some other interesting places, including nightclubs and phony brothels referred to as malinas, which translates to raspberries. As would be expected, these malinas contained cameras as well as listening devices. A similar setup was made in apartments known as swallows' nests. The rendezvous would take place in one room, while KGB technicians would be in the next room recording the encounter. Bars were a good place for sparrows to pry secrets from men, since alcohol would often loosen the tongues of the targets. Sex training and blackmail techniques. A natural question arises when considering a school dedicated to training in sexpionage. How exactly were students taught to use sex as a tool to manipulate targets? What did the lessons at the so-called Sparrow School entail? Female recruits at this institution were shown instructional documentaries featuring sexual techniques inspired by the Kama Sutra. These programs also included guidance from Soviet officials who shared tactics and insights gained during overseas assignments. But beyond mere observation, hands-on practice was integral to their training. Some cadets were reportedly required to undress in front of classmates or document compromising interactions involving fellow trainees, honing skills for potential blackmail. A range of tactics was employed to extract classified information from high-ranking officials and their associates, with blackmail being a favored method. However, extortion was often delayed, waiting until the target was positioned to provide more valuable intelligence. The details. The Sparrow recruits only attended State School Number 4 for a few months. In addition to the physical training, espionage lessons, and language classes, they were taught sophisticated customs, like how people from different cultures ate caviar and how to open a bottle of champagne. It was also important for them to learn how to speak other languages with almost no trace of a Russian accent. This would have been useful in undercover work if they had to assume the identity of a foreigner. The fate of State School. The current status of State School Number 4 remains unclear. Although digital surveillance has taken on an increasingly prominent role in intelligence work, building personal relationships remains essential for gathering sensitive information. Some believe that the Sparrow School operated primarily during the 1960s and 70s, with reports suggesting it may have closed in the late 1980s, aligning with the end of the Cold War. However, Russia's use of sexpionage has persisted into the 21st century, though details about how modern agents are trained are scarce. In a 2018 interview with CNBC, former CIA officer Jason Matthews speculated that Russia might now rely on independent contractors for such operations. While using professional sex workers to set up honey traps could be more efficient, it lacks the mystique of a specialized school for training agents in the art of sexual entrapment for intelligence purposes. Yet, whether or not the Sparrow School still exists, it continues to captivate audiences in both fictional literature and historical accounts. That's all for today. If you enjoyed exploring this topic, don't forget to like, share, and comment with your thoughts, and be sure to subscribe for more fascinating insights into the hidden sides of history.